I'm outside my job, and I'm hopefully I've got enough time to do this before someone randomly calls and interrupts my video, or an alarm goes off, or anything like that. So, okay. Alrighty. So this would be, what episode is this? So we've done 2. Okay, so this is going to be 3 on YouTube. Because at this point, I'm not going to try and match these up at all. I'm not going to do it. I thought I was going to do something funky with it. No, I'm just not. I'm not. And I'm okay with that. But, welcome to episode 3 of the Auntie's Tired podcast. I am your auntie niece. And I just got off of work, so you know I'm tired. Alright. Something about getting off of work that's so freeing, yet also kind of like that lingering in the back of your mind that you're going to have to do it again tomorrow. I mean, which is fine, especially if you're making good money. But sometimes sleep is better. Alright. So I wanted to touch today on the subject of boundaries. Some of y'all lack them. Some of y'all lack boundaries. Some of y'all lack the respect of other people's boundaries. And some of y'all have a hard time enforcing your own boundaries. That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm trying to get comfortable in the seat, and the seat cover is doing the thing, like it's like sliding and shit. So I'm just trying to like get with it. I'm also feeling like I'm getting choked by this damn hoodie, but you know, it is what it is. So boundaries. I'm going to go ahead and pull out our little friend, the Samsung here, i.e. the work phone, i.e. the trap phone. It's not. I'm full of shit. I'm truly full of shit. So let's see here. I'm going to look up the definition of boundaries for y'all's asses today, nieces and nephews. I kind of like doing this. Here we go. Oxford Languages. The dictionary definition of boundaries is a noun. She's plural, which means more than one. A line that marks the limits of an area, a dividing line. A limit of a subject or sphere of activity. Here's one. It says here, the true definition of boundaries. Anything that marks a border. Okay, so this is kind of the theme here. Anything that marks a border. So for all of you borderless nieces and nephews, this one is for y'all. I get how it can be a bit daunting to enforce your boundaries, especially if you're a person that has never truly established boundaries, has always been kind of a people pleaser, things like that. And I'm not going to say that there's anything wrong with that to an extent, because when you are that people pleaser, it comes from a place of just not wanting people to be mad at you. And I realize that's how a lot of people pleasers are. They have a hard time saying no. With that being said, no is not the worst thing that somebody's going to hear. It's not. And to be real, if you're a person that lacks boundaries, in a way, you are disrespecting yourself. You are allowing people to take advantage of you, whether they know it or not. And that's a totally different thing there. But whether they know it or not, they are taking advantage of you. And you could be tired, you could be ran down, you could be ready to be over it, and you'll still say yes. Or you'll still agree to things that you don't want to do simply because either you want someone to like you, or you you are afraid of saying no, or you're always saying yes, or for whatever reason it is, it all boils down to you lacking self-respect to a degree. I don't feel like people pleasing comes from a good place. I feel like there's sometimes like a trauma that's associated with it, or like think about the way that some people are brought up and they have really hardcore parents and always feeling like their parents are disappointed in them, can lead to that people pleasing, like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing this because this will make them happy, or this will make them happy, or this will make them happy. And the whole time, their happiness has nothing to do with that child. Their happiness has everything to do with themselves, because there are a lot of parents out there who lacked boundaries themselves when it came to how their parents raised them, or their boundaries were violated over and over again, and then they became adults that perpetuate the same cycle with their kids. So then here we are, little you want so bad to make your parents happy that your boundaries are being violated, and you don't realize it because you're too young to really understand what boundaries are when it comes to your parents. Because a lot of parents think that, oh, I brought you in here so I get to do XYZ. That is not always true. There are a lot of people that abuse that title of parent just so they can exhibit control over their children. Children are people too. Children are little bitty humans who are being molded and developed into hopefully good people. And when you sit there and you fuck with kids' heads and you take advantage of them, and you're always mean, or you're impatient, or you show them that they're never good enough, then you fuck around and you find out. Shit's wild to me. Those people that don't get it when their kids say shit like, I don't want to hug such and such, or they say that such and such makes them uncomfortable. I'm real big on my kids being like, if my kids don't want to hug somebody if my kids don't want to hug someone going into a house or a space, I usually look at that as either there's something they've picked up about that person they don't like, or they just don't fucking want to be touched. I think very early on we need to establish our children's boundaries, and what they exhibit are their boundaries. So for instance, I have a kid that does not like being touched. He will flat out tell people, don't touch me. He's not being rude, don't fucking touch him. That's just what it boils down to. Y'all always want to call people sensitive and all this other shit, when in reality, you don't want a stranger touching you, and you're a fucking adult. I think it's important to build those boundaries with children as they grow up. If you are not comfortable with something, it is okay to speak up. And if you are not comfortable speaking up, I will speak up for you. I'm that mama. I'll speak up for you. Now, there's going to come a point in their lives where they're going to have to learn to speak up for themselves. But while they are small, fuck around and find out. So, with that being said, boundaries, the lack thereof. Some of y'all grew up not realizing that you could set your own boundaries. You didn't know what boundaries were. And now you're an adult that is engaging in people-pleasing behaviors, or going to the events when you're tired, or just basically spending the energy you don't have. And it's at a cost every time. Once you realize that that's what's happening, I would not be surprised if you become a little depressed. When you are learning to set those boundaries, or when you realize that you don't have them and you're like, okay, well, I don't like this, so I need to start speaking up for myself, right? There's a lot of people walking around my car. I don't like this shit. But when there are issues around boundaries, and when you're starting to figure out what boundaries are, and when you're starting to put them in place, don't be surprised if you lose friends. Because some people recognized very, very early on in your friendship that you were easy to take advantage of, or that you always say yes, or that, no matter what you do, you're available. When you set boundaries, you cut that availability off. It's almost terrifying in a way, because you don't want to feel selfish. You don't want to be deemed selfish. But there is a level of selfishness that comes in with setting boundaries. There is a whole ass, it's a thing. Trust me. So you've discovered that you don't have any boundaries. Now you're trying to establish those boundaries. And you're trying to figure out how to adhere to those boundaries. So establishing these boundaries, I'm telling you, for some people, once they realize that, oh, this feels good to say no, and I could do whatever the fuck I wanted to. You may have had plans that day to go home and self-care. You go home, get in the bathtub, I'm going to shave my motherfucking legs, pits, cooch. I'm going to pluck my goddamn eyebrows. I'm going to do my hair. I got all these plans set for myself. And then here comes, the one with no fucking respect for your boundaries, asking you to take them up the street. And we all know that when someone says up the street, it's never truly up the street. It's not up the street. It's up the street, around the corner, and down the dandy ass crack. And it's going to be a whole mission. It's going to be a whole side mission. That all those plans you had for yourself are now ruined if you say yes. So then you don't say yes. You say, no, I got some plans. Next comes the fucking guilt tripping. And this shit pisses me the fuck off. If somebody has already said no, or that they're busy, why are you guilt tripping them because your urgency is not their emergency? Why are you guilt tripping them? Why are you doing that? What the fuck is wrong with you? Grow up. Respect your friends' boundaries. So then they go into the whole guilt trip shit, right? And they want you to feel bad that they don't have a ride, or they do that fishing shit. Well, I gotta figure out how I'm going XYZ. Figure it the fuck out then. Shit. Figure it out. Figure it the fuck out. Because it's not my job. It's not your friend's job to figure it the fuck out for you. When establishing your boundaries and you're dealing with people that don't respect your boundaries, or dealing with people that are used to you saying yes all the fucking time, there's that fishing thing. You'll get a message from someone and it'll be, hey, how you doing? It's not normally this person's MO to greet you. It's usually they come out and then it's flat out what they want. But now you've started to establish boundaries, right? Sorry if this is loud. I need to dig in my pocket. Fuck. So instead of outright doing the shit, right? They do the roundabout shit, the round the way type shit. How you doing? Oh, I'm good. I'm Gucci. Shit, what you on today? Not much of anything. Just chilling. Again, Gucci. Mouth is dry. It's dry as fuck out here. Then they go from that to, you be like, what you doing? For shits and giggles, right? Oh, okay, I'm not on much. What you doing? Shit, nothing. Trying to figure out how I'm about to bust this move. Woo, woo, woo. And before you know it, you're being roped into a conversation that will eventually require you to either sit the fuck still and do what you were doing before they called, or you end up saying yes to some shit you don't want to fucking do. And then you're exhausted. And you may already be fucking exhausted because you've already done what you're going to do for your day. Right? Beware of fishing. Beware of that shit. Especially if a motherfucker's being overly nice for no fucking reason, right? Fuck is you being so nice for? What do you want? It's like that kid, you know, one of your kids acting a little out of character. Hey, mommy, what you doing? Boy, what you want? I don't want nothing. Yeah, you do. What you want? We were wondering if we could, and you all have the one kid that's always the sacrificial lamb, right? But that's kind of similar to that fishing behavior when you start to establish your boundaries. Do not be surprised if while establishing your boundaries you start to lose friends. You will start to realize that some of your friendships were merely transactional. What you can do for somebody, you know? Alarm went off. Did all that, alarm still went off. But once you realize those things, yeah, your feelings are going to be hurt. Your feelings are going to be hurt. Especially because a lot of people that lack boundaries tend to be pretty empathic or, you know, very sensitive to other people. You got to be okay with losing those transactional friendships. Because if your friendship with somebody is based merely on what you can do for them, you might as well go to Walmart. You become friends with the motherfucking self-checkout if that was the case. You don't need people like that. You don't need people like that in your life. You don't. That shit is not healthy. That shit is not good for your mental. Cut this shit out. So now you're establishing and adhering to these boundaries. And you're starting to lose friendships. Right? And the shit sucks. But in exchange for all the leeches that fall off of you, you gain a little bit more of yourself and a little bit more of your peace. And you start to figure out the things that you like and you don't like, or things that you're willing to put up with and that you're not willing to put up with. And once you figure that out, then you're fine. So I think that there's time in between when you realize to when you are fully invested in adhering to your boundaries. Boundaries feel selfish. They do. They feel mad selfish at first when you're not used to it. Things always feel a little weird, a little off when it's something new that you're not used to doing. But once you figure it out, there's times where you're not going to necessarily know, but it's all trial and error. It's all trial and error. With that being said, I'm going to pause this video real quick because I have a phone call coming in. I have a fucking phone call coming in. Hold, please. All right. So Auntie's back. Hopefully that's the last one, at least for the next 15 minutes. I'm going to try and make this one a 30. I don't want to go too wild with it. But, okay, so where do we leave off? Adhering to boundaries. So that little gap of time and space in between there. Oh, boy. So once you figure out how to adhere to your boundaries, and you start to have the friendships that, you know, fall off and things like that, or you start hearing less from people and shit like that, right? Now you're in the trial and error period where you're just trying to figure it out. You're going to figure out what you do like. You're going to figure out what behaviors you don't like. You're going to figure out your triggers. Triggers are super fucking huge when you are establishing your fucking boundaries. Know your triggers. We have a tendency to not realize that some things are triggers for us. Like, for instance, you may have been a person that grew up in a house where everybody yelled at each other and it became commonplace for you, but you were not a person that yelled yourself. Now you're older, and when someone yells at you, your fight or flight instinct kicks in. Don't realize that it's a trigger because it was something that you grew up around, you thought was fucking normal, and now you're an adult and you're realizing that behavior was not fucking normal. Triggers. What people online try to call being triggered by everything, that's not being triggered. That's just a way to gaslight people into, not believing that certain shit is wrong. Like, saying everybody's too sensitive about the whole, I don't know, pick a fucking topic, but basically it's always one side calling the other side sensitive or, motherfucking snowflakes, or you're triggered by it. No. When people call out shit that's wrong, it's not them being fucking sensitive. It's you being a fucking asshole for trying to gaslight them in something that we all know is fucking wrong, and making fun of them for such. Like, figure your shit out. So recognizing your triggers is big. I'm real big on, and I've said this I've done 3 or 4 of these now. But I'm real big on getting you a motherfucking journal. Because while you're figuring out how to establish your boundaries, you're going to need to write this shit out. You're going to need to go back and read it. You're going to need to process what the fuck you've put on the paper. Process it. Don't just write it down and close the book. Process what the fuck you've just written. Process those triggers. Figure out where those triggers come from. So you're not, freaking the fuck out on people when your boundaries are being violated. There's a way to check folk. There is. Hey, I'm not comfortable with that, or asking them, hey, could you not do that, XYZ. And then you got those people that play too much, and then they fuck around and find out, and they realize that your ass might not be wrapped too motherfucking tight, and then they found out and don't like it. We're trying to avoid snapping the fuck off on people. We're trying to avoid bottling things up. We are trying to establish our boundaries, and we are trying to have our boundaries respected. If your boundaries are not being respected, you need to leave that situation alone. You do. You need to leave that situation alone. I'm telling you, it is the weirdest thing when you are realizing that you've been a people pleaser, or you're always on the go because you want to help, but where is that need in you coming from that you don't feel like you deserve a break, or you don't feel like you can say no? Where is that coming from in you? Because you can't put it off on the other person solely. It's something in you that is allowing that type of behavior to continue in your life. And we got to get to a point where we're not doing that. We got to. Now for you assholes on the other side that know that you have a friend that is always saying yes, that is always readily available, you're dumb. You're mean. Yeah, I'm being fucking mean about it. Because you and I both know, problematic nieces and nephews, you and I both know that you are taking advantage of that person. And this is not to the people that may not know, because there's always room for that. But these are for the people that use manipulation tactics against their friends that have started to establish their boundaries or have established their boundaries, and you don't like it. So you figure this person owes you their time, owes you their money, owes you their energy just because you fucking asked. And then when you don't get your way, you go and do little dry shit like post shit on Facebook or try to make people feel bad. Like, nah, we're not guilt tripping folks either, motherfucker. No. Because you need to be able to handle your responsibilities without utilizing somebody else's time, energy, money, whatever, what have you. It is so disrespectful to view a person as just something that you can take from. They're not a thing. They're not a bank. They're not whatever it is that you need, that you feel like you need to keep taking from them. They're not it. They're a human being with feelings. They're a human being with taps. You know, I'm tapping the fuck out. They have, everybody has their fucking limits. And those of you who like to push people past their limits, especially when you know they're tired or when you know that, hey, this little bit of money they have might only be what they have left, or support. You motherfuckers that think that everybody is supposed to support you just because they know you or just because they're your friend. It's not a genuine show of, hey, if you can, woo woo woo. I'm big on supporting my friends. Some people might not have the mental capacity or the time to give to you in that way, especially if their mental health is not that great. We have to stop expecting so much from other people without knowing their story. And honestly, their story is none of your business. But what is your business? Excuse me, I'm getting pissed off. But what is your business is your lack of respect for their fucking boundaries. If they've said no, if they said they ain't got it, then it's no, and they don't fucking got it. It's wild to me how people think that they are entitled to somebody else's what? You're not entitled to my what? You ain't entitled to how I what? And motherfuckers get mad. Entitled. How are you entitled, mad, and it ain't your goddamn business? It ain't your goddamn person. It's your lack of respect for somebody else's boundaries. And if you truly loved, cared, and respected that person, when they are telling you that they don't have the energy or they don't have the time or know that they can't do it, or hey, I don't think I'm going to be able to show up, I'm really tired, or hey, could you not do this because this hurts me or this bothers me? If you loved and cared for that person, then you would listen to them, digest what the fuck they're saying, and then attempt, at the very minimum, attempt not to participate in something that is harmful to someone else. Just because it benefits you does not mean that it isn't harmful to the person that you're asking it from. It's not about being sensitive. It's not about being a fucking snowflake. It's not about, oh, they're just triggered. No, it's literally this entitlement that people have to others' resources. If people are out here making their own way and finding that person that they want to be, and that goes into establishing boundaries, it does not make them fake, phony, or any other shit that y'all can come up with. It doesn't. It means that they just need their space. It means that you need to respect them if they're really your fucking friend. Back the fuck off. I am so proud of people that start to establish their boundaries. I am so proud of people that can say no. And we're not being like the motherfucker, no, what you gonna do? We're not talking about that kind of shit. We are talking about people who have been in recovery from whatever it is that has caused their lack of boundaries. We are talking about those who have newly discovered themselves and are just like, whew, well, I don't like that. That doesn't gel with where I'm trying to go. Setting boundaries is a huge part of your character development and your journey in life, or your journey in your career. You may be at work and a motherfucker wants you to stay over. Well, if my shift is from 8 to 5, you asking me to stay over when it is your job to cover somebody else if they are not present, you fixing your mouth to ask me is violating my boundaries. That's violating my shit. Especially if you know I'm not a person that's known to stay over, or somebody that has prior engagements after work. But in all reality, it is none of your fucking business why I don't want to stay past the time that I'm obligated to be here. You are violating my fucking boundaries when I say no, or we're a team. And no, the fuck we're not. We're a team from 8 to 5. We are a team from 8 to motherfucking 5. Now, there are some of y'all that like to go above and beyond, and I'm not shitting on y'all for that, because that isn't your character. That is what you want to do. You want that extra money? Go ahead. Do you, boo-boo. Go ahead. Do you. But I'm talking about the people who know that this person is likely to say yes, given, basically breaking under pressure. If you have to pressure someone into doing something, you are violating their goddamn boundaries. You're doing something that you shouldn't be doing. If it's unwilling and you have to apply pressure to get someone to do something, it's not cool. Now, I do want to say this. If it's something you're supposed to be doing, do this shit. If you got, tasks and shit at work that are assigned to your position to do such, if you are a teenager and you're watching this and you know that you have chores that you need to do, please go do your chores. Don't get in trouble listening to me. But this is a certain subject matter. And I know that it's probably going to get a little misconstrued, and that's fine. But for those of you who understand what I'm talking about, this is for you. And for those of you who don't want to understand what I'm talking about, but you know what the fuck I'm talking about, it's for you too. I have seen in my own life and in my own personal life how the lack of boundaries fucks with your mental. You'll say yes to something, and then the day comes up and you didn't want to say yes to it to begin with, but you're like, all right, I'll do it. Then the day comes up and you are so fucking exhausted. You were exhausted when you agreed to the shit to begin with, but you're now even more exhausted that the day has come. And now you're feeling bad because you really want to be like, I don't think I can. You want to back out. So now you're feeling pressure from yourself to go ahead and do something because you agreed to it, and you're not a person that goes back on your word. But you wouldn't have ended up in this situation if you would have checked in with yourself before saying yes. Boundaries doesn't mean being lazy. Boundaries doesn't mean being mean. Boundaries doesn't mean snapping off. It doesn't mean that. No, it just means that you really need to sit with yourself and understand your triggers, and what you are willing to put up with and what you are willing to not put up with. You got to figure that shit out. It's your line. It's your limit. And people have to respect what your line and what your limit is. And if they don't, fuck them, leave them alone. Especially if they're not trying to understand. Nieces and nephews, take it from your belligerent ass auntie when I say that you will wear yourself out trying to be everywhere at once. There's only one you. And then you have to live in this body. You have to deal with this mind. If you stretch yourself so motherfucking thin that you could barely get out the bed in the morning, you are disrespecting yourself. How can you give from an empty cup if you ain't got no fucking energy because you're always saying yes? No is not the worst thing that people will fucking hear in their lives. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. And if it is, oh well, that's not your problem. That's a them problem. That's a fucking them problem. Don't try and stretch yourself thin. Don't try and be everywhere at once. Don't. I'm telling you, it does not work. You will burn the fuck out. You will burn out, my babies. And this is coming from somebody who's done it. Ran myself so fucking raggedy that I ended up with anxiety issues, worrying too much, anxiety issues. You put more on yourself than what you can take. You can't carry everything. You can't carry everybody and everybody's emergencies. You can't deal with everything. You can't process everything. It is okay to not answer your phone. It is okay to not respond to text messages, especially if you are trying to take care of yourself. It even more so if you haven't been taking care of yourself and you're starting to. Folks need to get with it. There are boundaries that everyone has. Everyone has boundaries. And whether or not they've discovered them yet is none of our business. But for the boundaries that end up established within this person and then they vocalize this to other people, you either get with it or you get fucking lost. With children, if children are not comfortable with an adult or with touching or with things that make you as a parent go, we should not be doing that. We should be building our babies, having our babies' backs. If other kids are play fighting and somebody says, I don't want to be hit, it's not them being a fucking punk. Because a lot of you problematic men folk got that shit bad. It is not them being a punk. It is literally them being like, I don't want to be hit. Does your overgrown ass want to be hit just because motherfuckers are horse playing? No. Or you'd be over there horse playing. It's those little things, those little passes in life that help children become adults that are able to establish healthy fucking boundaries. When you make children do things that they are uncomfortable with. Now, I'm not talking about, they don't want to clean their room, but the room is a goddamn pigsty. We're not talking about that kind of shit, because teaching kids cleanliness, is another thing. That's a whole other topic. And as a parent, if you have toddlers, you know that is a whole war that you got to prepare for every fucking day. But if a child says, I don't want to be hit, or I don't like when you do this to me, or when they are just very vocal about certain shit, and again, those things that as a parent make you go, pay attention to those things. And if there's an adult that gets upset because this child doesn't want to hug them or be touched or however the fuck you may, if you are an adult and you're getting mad at a child for setting those personal boundaries, something is truly fucking wrong with you. Because why do you need that control over a child? Something's truly fucking wrong with you. If my babies don't want to go somewhere, like if I say, hey, I might drop you off at such and such today because mommy has something to do, can I just stay home instead? Why? Well, my stuff's here and I don't really want to go. Kids have weird ways of telling you things, and you gotta go with it. Sometimes kids are just being brats. Other times, they're not. And it is up to you to pay attention and discern. We talked about this in the episode that is on Apple. Go check me out on Apple. But the episode on Apple about discernment and figuring out what is actually what. and looking at that shit objectively instead of, I don't know. You got to discern whether or not your child's being a brat or if your child is actually uncomfortable. But either way, you need to listen first. It starts with listening and then questioning, those things that make you go, It's okay to question them because you do need to clarify as a parent. But once you determine either or, then you deal with it accordingly. But I am real big on watching adults that get mad when children set boundaries. Like, for instance, my 6-year-old. He's not a child that is very touchy-feely. He does not like to be touched. If my kid says he doesn't want to hug somebody, I'm not going to make them hug them. But you can speak when you walk in. Say good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is. Because when we walk into someone's house, that's what we do. We speak, right? Touching is a totally different thing, especially with some children and with some adults. I'm not big on strangers. No. You might get a fist bump at the most, but we are, post-COVID society, so half you motherfuckers don't wash your hands. But I'm always paying attention to shit like that. My babies that are setting their boundaries, that are adhering to their boundaries, that are living in your boundaries. What does it feel like? What is the comparison between what you used to allow and what you allow now? And how has that allowed you to grow as a person? Yeah, tell me all about that. For the 5 or 6 of y'all that watch it, why don't y'all put it down in the comments for me? Because, hi, growing channel, baby channel. But seriously, how does that feel? And even if you don't put anything down in the comments, ask yourself. I want y'all to be able to watch this shit and reflect. You may dismiss it as me being a fucking psychopath, and that is perfectly fine. You may dismiss it as me being angry and whatever the fuck else. That's perfectly fine too, because you still clicked on it and you still watched. Hi. But how does it feel? Because I'm going to tell you, at first, when I started doing that shit, it was super fucking scary. It was, because it's just like, damn, I almost feel guilty for saying no. But that is a part of the process, the part of the natural progression in establishing boundaries is to feel almost guilty, especially if you're somebody that's not used to doing it. But over time, you realize what is considered the norm is actually super fucking unhealthy. Always being on, always being ready to go, I'm gonna hustle till no. You need sleep. You need sleep. You need rest. We live in a place where everybody's always going and nobody rests. Because it's always this go-getter mentality. You could be a go-getter, you could have that go-getter mentality, but if you are not taking care of yourself, what are you getting? Tired, depressed. That was probably loud as fuck, I'm sorry. Shit, bags under your eyes. You're getting a lot of shit, but it ain't what you want to get. A lot of people's motivation may be money, numbers, or borderline endless. But you know what isn't endless? Your body. Everybody has an expiration date. Are you going to push yourself closer and closer to that expiration date earlier and earlier because you won't fucking rest? Boundaries, children. Boundaries. You gotta establish your boundaries. It is okay to not always be on. Take it from your auntie. I've done it. And it fucking sucks. Okay? It fucking sucks. It fucking sucks to always be tired. Now I am a human being of 35 years old that can't sleep any more than 3 hours a night. Do not end up like me. Do not do it. Go to bed. Sleep. Take a bath. Relax. Do those little things that you need to do to make sure that you're healthy. Establish those boundaries, children, because that's why we're here today. We're here today so you motherfuckers can establish your boundaries. I want y'all to be able to say no or whatever it is that you need to do. Whatever it is you need to do. Because at the end of the day, you have to live in this body, and the quality of your life is important. It is important. Do you want a quality existence, or do you want one where you're always fucking tired and mad and grumpy because you're struggling internally with the fact that you can't fucking say no? Think about that. How do you want, what kind of quality do you want? You want good quality or you want bad quality? You want a quality existence, a great existence. You want to be able to look back and be like, damn, I did that. Not, I lived for everybody else. You don't want to live for everybody else. Everybody else is living for themselves. While they fucking, drain you dry. You don't want to put yourself in that position where you are watching everyone else live, or you are helping other people progress so much that you can't even help yourself because you have no energy to do so. Okay? Boys and girls, men folk and women folk, problematic nieces and nephews, please, please, please respect each other's boundaries. And if you are incapable of doing such, then you need to leave people the fuck alone. And if you are new to this area in your walk, know that it is okay. You are going to stumble. You're going to revert. You're going to go through the stages, but eventually, I'm telling you, I am confident in this, you are going to figure it out. Because if you even got to the place where you realize that you don't have boundaries, or you have poor adherence to such, you're already at a place where you know it's an issue and you don't like it. You don't like that about yourself, so you're trying to change it. And anybody that tells you that you're selfish or that you're wrong, fuck them. Seriously, no, fuck them. It's okay to say no. It is okay to sleep. It is okay to work your shift and then go home when it is over with. It is okay to do what you've been paid to do and nothing more. It is okay to want to stay home instead of going out. It is okay to not be on all the time. You are not a goddamn refrigerator. You're not just going to be on all the time, humming and shaking and shit. You are not an Amazon warehouse that is open 7 days a fucking week. 300 and was it, they close like 4 times a year, so what? 360 days a year. That is not you. You are not this bucket that people could just reach in and grab whatever the fuck they need, whatever they feel like it. Put the goddamn lid on it. Put the lid on that shit. People need to start asking your permission for your space, for your energy. And you need to start respecting yourself enough to put the goddamn lid on it. Put the lid on that shit. Limit that shit. If you are struggling so much that it is affecting your mental, you need to put a fucking lid on it. You know how you adhere to your boundaries? Practice. Practice. Every situation that comes up, consider it practice in setting and adhering to those boundaries. And each one that you establish, and that you finally get to a point where you live where you've established those boundaries, that's a victory. Excuse me again. It's a victory. Those are the little victories. If we look at the overall picture, you may see it as, oh my gosh, I keep fucking up, so I'm failing. But if you look at each individual you know, situation or opportunity, excuse me. If you look at each opportunity, and then you may have pass, fail. Are you going to look at that as a whole, as a failure? Or are you going to look at it as, damn, I passed and it's okay? This is just another opportunity here. This failure is another opportunity here for me to establish my boundaries and stick with it. Being pressured into things, it's not okay. And I'm not talking about the friend that, you know, is always, oh no, I don't know if I can, or lacks a little bit of confidence, that you got to kind of get them outside of their shell. We're not talking about that. Because there are some of us that get comfortable in that shell and don't want to go nowhere, don't want to do nothing. Okay, I'm working on that. Because as people, everybody tell you, I don't need nobody, but people need people. Depression is a motherfucker. And an idle mind is the devil's playground. Not saying that people are distractions, but if you're living and truly enjoying your living, where are you going to have time to fall into those thoughts? Mental health is very complex. It's not a one size fits all, one, fucking solution. It's not. But a big part of your healing process is establishing fucking boundaries. Once you establish them, stick with them. Once you stick with them, you get to live in it. Figure out your triggers. Everything will be fine. I promise. It will. Because it ain't got no choice but to be. Peace is knowing that even when shit is on fire, there's enough water for me to be all right. All right, so my other camera died. However, I'm going to end this by saying that this is episode 3 of the Auntie's Tired podcast. I need you problematic people to get your lives together, because regardless, Auntie loves you anyway. Establish your boundaries. Make sure your boundaries are respected. Respect other people's boundaries, for crying out loud. And know that your auntie loves you. The sun is sunning, isn't it? Ooh, she's giving. Auntie doesn't look ashy today. Sort of. But I love y'all. And until next week. Oh, yeah, make sure you check me out on Apple, because I have stuff on Apple that isn't on YouTube. I'm going to put the link down below in the description. I guess that's where people do this shit. I love y'all. Be safe. Wear some motherfucking lotion. Establish those boundaries. Love you. Bye.